Clear to engage. Time on target. 5 mics. Out.
Is it really overreach, Reagan, or is it just he just wants to win? So or is it his team? I guess I bet. What's his name? Lasavito was probably running all the races, which was Trump's guy.
And I will take. I do want to preface this by saying I haven't studied this deeply, so I don't know if they said no to any redistricting or if they had an alternative plan that they wanted to put forward that was more of a milder redistricting. That's the one caveat I will say. If they didn't want to redistrict at all, I would say that is probably not a smart move because you are in a national warfare. So yes, you should be. But if it was the Trump administration or national Republicans handed us maps and we think that those maps are bad or that they're dummy mander or that they make us look bad, then I see their point and totally agree. So if it was take one, I'm getting a call right now that I'm putting away. So I just asked. I hate when I text somebody and say, "Are you available to check in?" That doesn't mean call me. I'm a millennial. Yeah. Text me back and we'll schedule a time. I don't want to be called. So anyway, that's my one caveat. But the Indiana Senate, when you do take a stand against your party, there's for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And boy, was the reaction strong from the Trump administration and their allies in terms of just primarying the absolute crap out of these guys. There were only 2 of 8 that survived, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. 5 out of the 7 were tossed. Okay.
All right. They didn't primary one. There was another one where there was a spoiler candidate with the same last name as the challenger, which, I mean, that's a tough primary to win regardless. Mm-hmm. Now I will say, I believe that the challengers had more money spent on their behalf. I think that they just had more resources because this became a national thing and Trump backed it. So I think if you get outspent, even as an incumbent, really badly, you are at risk of losing. That's a scenario where you can definitely lose your shirt there.
I'm reading an article on PBS. But they were asking them like back in December why they voted. And they're kind of all over the place, but basically the caucus was split on whether or not they should do it or could do it or all the things. And, it's like if your house is on fire, you don't just throw more wood on it, right? Basically, it was kind of their argument. So it was pretty much, and you got to think about Indiana. Indiana's Mike Pence territory, which is anti-Trump territory. Mm-hmm. For some people, and I bet a lot of those people, if we did some digging, I bet they were Pence people.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And I would not be surprised on that level that they just thought they could basically say no, and that Trump would just kind of go away because it was kind of early on in that whole let's do some redistricting kind of things. So they probably didn't realize the backlash that would come, and they probably didn't realize that the Virginia stuff would happen, and so I think there's some reasons for that, but at the same time, they mostly got their asses handed to them.
Oh, they did. One guy actually survived an even fight, or he actually held his ground. And so I noticed this. Let's see. I texted it to a couple people. I forgot to text it to you, but it said the headline now of Classic Politico: Trump's redistricting revenge tour in Indiana isn't going so well. Well, it went pretty well on election night. So clearly, whatever indicators they were looking at didn't work. Yeah. However, the point that I noticed is this guy, I think his name is Spencer Deary. He was giving a quote, and he said that he could realize he could knock on a third more doors if he could zip around on an electric scooter. So he spent $250 on Amazon for an electric scooter. He had more than $2 million spent on his race, most of it against him, it says, and he is probably going to survive. Now I don't know Indiana, their ballot curing and all that stuff. He's up by 4 votes. He netted a vote.
Mm-hmm. So wild. And I'm looking at that one. And it was about, which is crazy to be that much money, and there was only 12,000 665 votes cast.
And how many votes did he get? Or you're looking at the results right now?
6,334
Okay.
to
Yeah.
6,330.
So a bit of and that's high turnout because he said he projected he needed 5,500 votes to win. But this goes to show you, and this is the broader point, is not about this redistricting stuff. Although I do think when you start to get involved in some of these, I think if you step down from the federal level, it looks easy to do this redistricting stuff.
Yeah.
But then you kind of note there's different quirks and different things about local issues. So you sort of have to give both sides a little bit of the benefit of the doubt if you don't know the local quirks, which I don't. But he knocked the doors to win, and you can win if you knock the doors. That's how you beat getting outspent.
Yeah.
And I would guess that most of the other candidates did not knock as many doors as he did, and that's probably why he survived. And if you come under, and that's my dad's seat is the same. It started as an R+8. And then it was like D+9, 10 or whatever. And that is how he would pull that victory out, as my dog has spilled my Pepsi that I left on the ground because I'm not smart. That's how you prevail, is you knock the doors. You just knock the absolute crap out of your district. And at the state legislative level, you can do it. That's not a question of if, it's a question of do you want to win enough?
Yeah. In a primary for sure. I mean, I think that's pretty amazing feat there. And they were kept, most of the other districts were carried by 60 to 50, high 58.
Oh, just got obliterated.
74% in one district. I mean, just obliterated and pretty wild. I mean, to have a primary to spend $2 million on one side, Reagan, that's just like, I don't even know what you spend that on.
Well, and that was one of the others. There was like, oh, we could have used this money in Virginia redistricting. And it's like, there's not a world where the donors are the same, or they can't. That's a silly argument. I don't buy that argument at all.
No,
so,
and Trump's sitting on like $400 million. So whether or not he should have, would have, or I mean, I agree, he should have spent some money on Virginia. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
that was I think a miss by the state party, the state legislature, as well as the Trump team. So Mike Johnson, all of them, the resources are there, right? I mean, all they got to do is just turn the nozzle on. But so that was a misstep. I don't know. Maybe there was some polling they thought they.
Well, and Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic leader, just kept plowing money into that thing. Yeah. And obviously that was key for him too. But it seems like, and I didn't double check, it seems like the Republicans probably should have decided from the beginning. Because a lot of times this stuff gets decided from the beginning on how much we're spending or we're not spending when you're at this high level. It's not like the money doesn't exist. It's just, are we going to spend it on this? You kind of have to decide from the beginning. We plan to outspend these guys 2-1. So every time we see $1 million show up, we send 2, kind of a deal, right? Yeah. And they obviously weren't that committed.
I said that to somebody today about a state senate primary. I said, whatever you send, he's gonna spend double.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. It's just that when you have those resources at your disposal, it is kind of fun to run those races where you just know that money doesn't matter, it's pretty cool. So
the other thing, totally random piece of Twitter, is the last of the big super PACs, the Congressional Leadership Fund, has changed their name officially on their paperwork from Congressional Leadership Fund to CLF, which somebody noted saves a second and a half on ad time. So that you can, when you do your ads, paid for by CLF instead of Congressional Leadership Fund. So anyway, you know what's going to save dollars for the Republicans? They'll be able to squeeze more information into their ads now. So the kinds of things that they think about that matters when you've got hundreds of millions of dollars going into 10 key states or whatever.
Well, that's what I want to change. I would like to do a PAC when we do campaign finance in Oregon. We'll just call it the ABC PAC. or we could use APAC, then people think it's Jewish. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, just the letter APAC.
APAC.
Well, and I think the fact that APAC, even though it's pronounced APAC, is AI PAC, and so all the AI companies are like, "Hey, you stole our PAC name decades before we were able to get it."
Long before. Well, how was the Great Wolf Lodge, Reagan?
The Great Wolf Lodge is great. They give you may be aware of this, they give you some ears. I felt like when I put them on, though, I put them on for with my kids, And then, we took one picture, I think, and then you look in the mirror and you go, unfortunately, I feel like this makes me look like a furry, so I'm not going to wear them anymore. And I'm sure they are cute and meant to be cute. I don't think that's the reasoning behind them, but there's a certain element of culture that has kind of ruined that sort of stuff for me, which is unfortunate. But otherwise, a ton of fun. They've got lots to do. The water park. So this is me, though, of course. We're there and the first night, and I'm like, I wonder how this business performs and what the investors think. And so I was Googling, and they said that if they can get someone to spend $300 in lodging, and so they'll do some pretty hefty discounts on their stays. I mean, full price is probably $300 or $400 a night, and you can easily get it on Groupon for 100, 150 a night. But they said if people spend about 300, they spend another 300 at the place with the different a la carte add-ons, with the different food and the different attractions that aren't the water park. Because the water park is bundled in with your room. So that's just kind of the thing to get you there. And then they kind of create a full resort situation so you don't ever have to leave their property. And that's how they make the money. And now they're owned majorly by Blackstone, and Blackstone's put $2 billion into developing more Great Wolf Lodge locations and making them bigger. So anyway, that's me as I get fascinated by the business of the thing while I'm there. I can't just have fun, but I did have fun also. And the kids really liked it and wanted to come back, and there's more stuff to do, more things to spend money on. So they want to go back.
They don't put them like next to other fun things to do too. So that's also very smart. So if you're
I've never heard of Grand Mound, Washington, but they have a Great Wolf Lodge there. So they do have one in Scottsdale though, Brian.
I saw
not too far from you. They have Colorado Springs. So they do, some of the locations are closer to things that might be worth doing.
Well, the Scottsdale one, I would assume does really well in the summertime because it's so hot out, and then people can go, indoors and go to a water park. I mean, which is that's a really good idea because you still have a decent amount of tourism and stuff like that. So, you guys are just talking to Alex. He's down there still in Arizona, and it's starting to warm up. So it's that time when you start teeing off at 5:30 in the morning, and you want to be off the course by 9:30. But the courses are really cheap, and I bet the Great Wolf Lodge is more expensive in the summertime, which would be interesting.
It is absolutely more expensive in the summertime, and then and all the snowbirds started going, Minnesota's starting to look good about now.
Yeah, they're pretty much all by May 1st, basically May 1st to October 31st. Is like the non-tourist tourism, or that's the snowbird season is. Everybody leaves by May 1.
That's when the real Arizonans get their state back, huh?
Yeah, I think so. It's amazing though when you see like traffic down around there. You go down there in the summertime and it's, you got 8-lane freeways and you can just zip. There's just nobody on the road. So middle of the day because it's hot.
Yep.
Well, I'll be down there, and after the primary, I got to run down and button the house up for the summer. So it's like winter. Everybody's I got to button the house up for the winter. It's like, well, I got to button it up for the summer. Put a bucket of water in the inside and stuff like that, so things don't dehydrate. Kind of interesting. Turn your AC, up to about 85, 90, so you're not just killing yourself on your electric bills.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, it's good times. Well, hey, on this I think the Indiana thing was kind of fun to talk about because I think it really won, and I think shows the power of Trump still that he has. He still has a stranglehold, on the party.
He does, yeah.
At least to the tune of 60% or so.
And I think that's a pretty good indicator for the next thing we're going to talk about, which is governor and how Trump affects Oregon. Yeah. Which means, so what are the things that this means? And everybody keeps looking for the sign. This is like, well, where's the sign that the Republicans have moved beyond Trump? There is not one. You're not going to get one.
No.
So stop looking. And so you're going to have to address Trump head on in the election because it's all the team is going to talk about. That's all the press wants to talk about because he generates a lot of views and a lot of clicks, at least on news sites. So you have to be willing to address Trump. And if you don't, you are going to lose for sure. Doesn't mean you aren't going to lose if you do address him, but avoiding Trump isn't going to be possible.
No. I think, and it seems, and I don't know if there's a reason to avoid President Trump. Like I would just be like, I'm fine. Like on the debate was it kind of, they asked him that question, of course, like, why would you accept President Trump's endorsement? And Ed Deal said he wouldn't, which I thought was odd.
I thought was a huge mistake. He said he did the classic politician-y thing, which I thought he wasn't supposed to be a career politician. He seems to have picked up the tricks of the trade pretty quickly. He was very careful. He said, "I'm not seeking President Trump's endorsement." Okay. So he didn't technically say he wouldn't take it. However, I think that's implied. And I think that that's actually a huge mistake in this scenario, especially in a Republican primary. So what I would have done, and I could be wrong on this, but I was listening to that question and I immediately, the answer that popped into my brain was, one, Tina Kotek thinks she's running against Donald Trump, which Drazen said, but her administration started under Joe Biden. And even in those 2 years, everything got worse. So it's clearly not the federal government that is causing these problems. As much as she wants to direct you that direction, their evidence is clear. We have proof. Joe Biden was president for 2 years, overlapping with Kotek, and nothing got better. So you can't use that excuse. Then what I would do is I would throw Trump back in her face and I would say, I would accept an endorsement from President Trump because he has a higher approval rating than Tina Kotek does. And I think, one, you get to play some mind games with her because I think that probably makes her crazy, the fact that Trump is technically more popular than she is. But that's true. He's between 5 and 10 points more popular in the state of Oregon. Trump is more popular than Tina Kotek. And so I would. Now, I think that you can also do the thing that you need to do in Oregon, which is say, that doesn't mean I support everything that Donald Trump supports. If I take an endorsement, I take that to mean somebody supports me, not that I support them. And so just because he endorses me doesn't mean I agree with everything that he does. And I'll stand up for Oregon first. I'm not running because I am a Republican. I'm a Republican because I think we need better government. And that's why I'm running for office. And I think through this whole thing, we've forgotten the fact that party is not the most important thing, and that these guys, as the governor, need to realize they lead the whole state, not just the party. And a lot of these questions were focused on the Republican Party because I think either the press is trying to damage the Republicans. Some of these questions look like they were an attempt to damage the candidates on purpose. Some of them looked like they just didn't know what to ask about. For instance, the first question was, well, you guys are big losers all the time. Is there any reason to think you aren't going to continue to be big losers and lose every race? And it's just like, okay, thanks. Like that would be like asking the first question in a presidential debate. It's like, oh, when did you figure out that Joe Biden had dementia and how long were you keeping it a secret? They never ask Democrats those questions. No. They go, aren't those mean federal Republicans making it hard for you to govern? Like the questions are never close to fair. And I'm done asking for them to be fair, but I don't feel like for the most part, they really took on the question and they were like, well, that's a terrible question because being the governor shouldn't be about which party we are. It's about who can get the job done. And Tina Kotek has shown she can't get the job done, right? Like something like that. And they just can't even figure out how to do that basic pivot. And so that was a little unfortunate, I think. I think there could have been better responses to some of that stuff.
Yeah. And, and a lot of the questions were like you said, they're kind of very like national-esque, kind of big picture kind of stuff. I mean, there was nothing on homelessness. There was nothing on, because clearly all of those things would make, Tina Kotek look bad because it's only just exploded under her watch. And I just think that it was unfortunate that the candidates didn't take the opportunity to spin it that way. I mean, right. Drazen did. If anybody did, she's probably the only one that really kind of spun it into, Tina really just destroying everything. And then, I would have just answered the questions quickly and just wedged in my messaging more like you were saying earlier, but it was fine. I just wish there would have been more. And they just didn't like debate, which is the hardest part about it. There was no like debating, and it was just this weird, okay, oh, your turn now to answer, and now your turn. And
for each one of these candidates, I would have just like, why can't you come up with one thing to say about them that's negative to try to draw the contrast. Like if you're any of the candidates, you look at Drazen and you go, so are you going to stop? Is there any point you're going to stop campaigning on all of your dead bills that never passed? Like just hit her, right? Like just do anything to try to throw her off her game. Or if you're attacking Dudley, it's like, gosh, I thought you played basketball, but you're claiming to be a businessman. Like, what have you done? Like, he hasn't explained anything about how he's been a businessman. No. Really, he's running on it, but like, I don't understand where that credit comes from. I'm sure he's done,
but he's really not. He's running on the fact that we need a rebound.
And so then it's like, I don't understand that. I think the message is muddled again. And then if you're going with Deal, I think Deal, he struggles with being the polished person because he hasn't done this as much. He's only had the 2 state rep races. Yeah. So there hasn't just been a lot of chance for him to test himself. And if you're attacking Bethel, it's like, why are you at 2%? If you're so great and you've done all this stuff, like, why are you at 2%?
For a year, you've been campaigning that. She even said that. I've been campaigning the longest on this stage. And I'm like, and you'll be lucky to get above 2%. I'd have said, why are you even on the stage?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And
you're clearly not going to enter into the conversation.
Yeah.
So, they let her on the stage because I think it's because everybody just likes her.
Yeah, and I
like her too. It has nothing to do with that, but you haven't proven yourself to be worthy of being on the stage.
All three debates, she's proven to be the best spoken candidate with the most specific answers. Betsy Johnson in the pregame and postgame stuff that you did, Betsy Johnson, Rick Metzger, all 3 of you noted she has the clearest answers. She has the best responses. She's the most specific candidate. She's just run the worst campaign. And I think that's a combination of things she can't control, which is she needed to be the only female candidate in the race, and Drazen decided to get in. She needed to be the only candidate from the Valley, and Ed Deal decided to get in. Yeah. So a little bit is just being unlucky, but she didn't take the time advantage that she had to build a strong campaign that people were afraid to run against. And that 100% comes down to staffing choice and who she decided to go with as staff, I think, at the end of the day, unfortunately.
And she's got an ultimate, hey, listen, we're both staff on some level, so we understand that. But I don't know how much work she did being able to sell it, because at some point you do have to sell your campaign, sell your vision to donors, right? So there is something along those lines.
And sometimes, and I don't know that this is the case for her, sometimes candidates try to be their own campaign manager, and that you can't fix that. They have to let go and let their campaign get managed and be told, hey, this is what's happening, and you shouldn't be adjusting that stuff unless it's major errors. And the only other candidate with major campaign errors here is Dudley, and he hasn't seemed to corrected those things either. I mean, we've had a couple of stories now, and you pointed out he's not been in mail. He finally got into mailboxes with one piece that was a very basic baseline piece.
I got another one today.
He needs 8 of those. He needed 8 of those 3 weeks ago, and because he needs to get himself competitive.
Do you see that? It looks just like Drazen's 2A piece. Now Dudley's shooting a rifle.
Yes. Interesting.
So, but it's like, well, now you're just copying Drazen.
Oh man, what is he wearing? Holy smokes. That there's something wrong. I wouldn't have worn that.
I think I don't know. The guy that wears a cowboy hat that you clearly doesn't wear a cowboy hat is not play.
Nope. Again, that's not part of your persona. Don't pretend. It doesn't help you.
People sniff that stuff out pretty quick, man.
Just hold the basketball. You can just be holding the basketball. If you're going to lean into being a basketball player, just lean into it. Stop. Make it your logo. Make it interest. Do something, man. But he just can't. It's been too cookie cutter, too basic, too front runner-y even. He's kind of run a front runner style campaign without ever having been the front runner. And then back to the debate.
All the stock images there you could buy. I mean, it's just like, at least like those should have been like quotes from real people, right?
Yes.
Like have a farmer on there. I mean,
yes, 100%. Because you gotta establish his credibility somehow with local folks. If you're not going, because he's not winning the politician endorsement race, probably he's sort of winning the fundraising race, but he's also sort of cheating by having Phil Knight there. So it's not like So he has to find a different way to get that across. And again, I think an Eastern Oregon strategy would have been helpful for him too, because I think his style of politics would resonate out there pretty well. And then that propels him back to the west side of the state with some polling, a little bit of a polling bump on that front. Last thing, Ken Body gets an F for asking which of you voted by mail. Oh my gosh, dude, they all did.
You have to.
You have to vote by mail. We're a vote by mail only state. You can, I guess, get your ballot by mail and then walk it in. And technically they're supposed to have a thing up there that you can kind of fill in that sort of looks like a polling booth, but you have to put this ballot in the same place everybody else does. There's nowhere you go in person, get checked off a list and they hand you a ballot. That's not how it works. We're a vote by mail state. And so he's like, how many of you voted by mail? And don't forget Donald Trump voted by mail. And it's just like, Ken, dude, you got to prep better for this stuff. That was terrible. That was so bad. And then when he gets into the voter registration stuff, he's like, well, I just want to make sure that we note that all of those people who were illegally registered, almost none of them voted. And I wish Drazen did push back, which I think was awesome. But I think she should have said something like, did you get the Democratic Party to pay for that statement, or did they just give it to you for free? Because like, gosh, man, that's every time. It's just like, oh, well, as long as the fraud is happening, we need to make clear it wasn't bad fraud. And that's what they do is first they deny it's ever happening. They always denied that nobody was being illegally registered. And once they discovered it, well, it wasn't that many people. And even when it wasn't that many people, at least very few of them voted. And it's like, well, if we don't stop it at the very beginning, which is getting registered, how are we going to know when it gets worse? Because we didn't find this except by accident. And so all of that stuff combined, I know I'm ranting and raving and just going crazy. I wish...
well, if you contrast that, and I'll put it in the show notes or you will or whatever, but if you watch the Spencer Pratt for mayor debate that they're having in LA, by the way, go watch it because it's great. Spencer did a great job of, hitting where he needed to be hit, but it was a real debate. Like the rules were like, hey, if they say your name, that you could do follow-ups, and there was pushback, and there was some back and forth there. And even a couple of times, he complimented Mayor Bass and just said, well, at least you tried. And this other one didn't even try. Like you had some there was some back and forth is which makes it entertaining instead of just being these just kind of question answer that is just not, it's not a debate, right? I mean, I would have gave each of them like a 2 30-second follow-up cards that they could play whenever they wanted.
Yeah.
Just something to so they could wedge in, hey, you know what? I want to follow up on what Dudley said about X, right? Or something just to create some entertainment, because quite frankly, I mean, I kind of felt like our wrap-up debate was more entertaining than the debate.
Yeah. And I think that there was some of it where I feel like not only has Drazen not gone over her 2022 loss, neither has Betsy Johnson in some respects. I think it's going to be, you just can't, those two are oil and water, and it just doesn't feel like they're ever gonna mix together. And I think that's okay, but it just is what it is. But I did notice that it seemed like Drazen performed well, but Betsy still didn't give her an inch. And there seemed to be confusion about Drazen's answer on agencies too. Drazen did not say she was going to fire every bureaucrat or agency head. And I understood her answer to mean anybody who was, reasonably proficient at their job would have a chance to interview and continue, but was expected to do better. And she'd fire the guys who sucked and replace them. Like, that was clear to me. So I'm a little confused how people didn't get that. Maybe I was the only one. But I think there were very good answers on that front. And I think that in a lot of sense, they're saying a lot of things that Oregonians agree with. The other thing that all the candidates appeared to be afraid of or didn't really land their answers were on abortion. So that's the other, those are the two things that if you're going to win, you have to figure out your answer on Trump, and you've got to figure out your answer on abortion. Bethel started off very strong. She said she had a personal story. She didn't tell it on the debate stage, so I'm not sure if that was a mistake or intentional or what. But I do believe she does have a personally compelling story, and that is an effective way for her to relate to the audience in terms of why people think abortion needs to be legal. Is there is fear and afraid of raising a child alone, and what if it messes up my life, right? That's the fear that a lot of people have when people aren't supported. And then she talked about bringing and funding those supports. Everybody else was like, well, I recognize this is a tough issue, or Dudley's answer about I'm a libertarian, and nobody else, everybody looked scared of the question. And when you look scared of the question, then that's what's going to get asked. And until you figure out the answer, and that's what's going to be hit on the campaign until you figure out how to shut that thing down. And I think there's lots of different approaches that you can take, and no one's trying anything creative, which I think is unfortunate, because we know that the stuff that has been tried, for the most part, hasn't seemed to work a ton. The best you can kind of do is not lose too much ground on the issue, I think. But I think there is a way to win the issue. I just don't know that we've seen anybody try it really successfully. I think Danielle came the closest. And I think personal experience and local experience with healthcare are both reasons why. But she could have gone on to say, we don't fund abortion at the local level, and we're not going to, and we shouldn't in Oregon either, or whatever her choice of issue was.
Yeah, I think you're right on the idea that you have to know if you're a Republican running in the fall, you have to have abortion and Trump as your top two knock it out of the park responses, right? Yep. I don't care if you're on the doors or if you're clearly doing any sort of debate, it's going to come up, because that's really a differentiator between, what the Democrats especially see. And also, people have pretty solid opinions on those two topics. Like, here's what people, how do you feel about Trump? They have an opinion. And then how do you feel about abortion? Most people have an opinion, right? So they are two things that are going to come
remember
up.
The Democrats used to talk about safe, legal, and rare. And I don't think that's a good position necessarily for a Republican to have, but I think it would be great to highlight and do a combination of things, which we always tell candidates to do. Highlight how extreme Democrats are. Remember when Democrats used to talk about safe, legal, and rare? Now they're for unsafe, they're for anytime, anywhere, and they want it to be as prevalent as possible. And I just think that's wrong and not where most Oregonians are. Abortion isn't safe in the state. We don't have the same regulations as we do for other kinds of healthcare. It is legal according to the Constitution, and according to the Constitution and the Supreme Court, which has said that states get to regulate it, and we have laws in the state that make it legal, but it's not rare. It's prevalent, in fact, and that's something that we need to change. And as governor, my goal would not be to change the laws first. It would be to change the culture and change the thought. And that gives you the opportunity to pivot into adoption. That gives you the opportunity to pivot in. Let's roll back the taxpayer funding and the promotion of abortion, and let's start talking about adoptions. And you can push, and there's so much you can do. Dudley kind of gave the cop-out answer, was the governor can't do anything. The governor has the power to create proclamations. The governor has the power to dump the mifepristone that Kotek bought. Somebody should be saying those things. And those... the budget. And you can say all of those things and not necessarily go as far as saying, I'm going to outlaw abortion, which if you have a Democratic legislature, you're definitely not going to do. You should say that we need to end late-term abortion and we need to end born alive, because those are not safe and those are already rare, and we need to get done with those. Most Oregonians agree with me on that, and we can argue about the other stuff down the road, but and then pivot back into some other focus or something. Although a lot of times when they do that, they go, well, abortion, not so important, tax, more important. And that is not the right message to send for people that care about that issue. Yeah. But yeah, you got to try something different.
I'm with you on trying to, but I think each candidate has to determine. There can't be like a canned answer. Like every person has to be like, this is my crusade, or this is what I want to do. And I believe my thing on the abortion, and I'm really developing it, in my own head, how I feel about it. But I think because Vicki's she's more conservative than I am, just in general. I mean, we've always had this argument, her and I. And but I'm also, I'm also pro-life. I'm very pro-life, but I'm very pro-family. And I think pro-family, and your dad and I used to have these conversations about how you would look at a bill, and if a bill supports having children,
Yeah.
that should be a pro-life bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, childcare, what are the prenatal stuff, like things that are pro-family should be pro-life. And I think sometimes we don't view it through that lens. We view pro-choice and pro-life through the lens of, are you just killing the baby or not?
Mm-hmm.
And it should be like, and I can see the argument on both sides of that. But I think really the nuanced argument is like, hey, I'm pro-family. So I'm pro the government making sure that, like Charlie Kirk said, you should always have more kids than you can afford, because we have a population problem.
Yeah.
And if we don't actually have more kids and have more Americans have more kids, then the more pressure there is to import in new Americans, which is a problem. And but I just think that I would just take the pro-family approach, and I'm kind of working through what that's going to look like. But I think as get into the fall or through the summer, I really want to like kind of flush out what it means to be pro-family. So you can say, hey, what are you, pro-choice or pro-life? They go, no, I'm pro-family. Are you against families? Because I'm not. I'm for families, right? And
Yeah.
so I think if that makes me pro-life, then so be it. But I'm kind of working through that tough question. But of course, I got to make that specific to every one of the candidates that I'm working with, because they need to have what they're comfortable saying, and that's the most important thing. And you could see with those, going back to the governor's debate, you could clearly tell that all of them up there still weren't comfortable with that question. And I think you just have to be comfortable with it. And I think it's okay to be pro-life. I don't think that I don't think they're going to judge the governor's race on whether because no matter what you are, this, you could be pro-choice in Oregon. You could be a pro-choice, like full on pro-choice Republican, and they'll still call you a MAGA pro-lifer.
New Bueller learned the hard way on that one.
Yeah, there you go.
He gave it the college try, and Planned Parenthood, that was their number one goal, was make sure that this guy looks like the pro-lifeiest, most Trump-loving Republican of all time. So like, that's why you have to neutralize these. You have to figure out what your answer is. So when you get that, you answer it so that there isn't follow-up. Because when you say, I'm not seeking President Trump's endorsement, or if you say, well, I don't agree with Trump on everything, the obvious follow-up is, why aren't you seeking his endorsement, or what do you not agree with him on? And that is not necessarily the place you want to have that conversation unless you have a really solid answer on that stuff, right? And you can say, one of the ones where I saw today was, well, why do you oppose a 6-cent gas tax increase when Trump bombing Iran has increased gas prices by $1.30? And I think the simple answer is that Donald Trump has a different job than I do, which is defending the free world and Americans, both here and overseas. And that job is different. Sometimes that does cause us to need to bomb the crap out of the folks with the oil, because that's what's going to keep America safe, even if there's pain. And he's courageous for doing it when there's a political price to be paid. Our job is to manage a state budget that is out of control. And the 6-cent gas tax increase is just going to enable the continued waste and corruption that has happened. And we've got to stop the bleeding. We got to put down the shovel. And Democrats refuse to put down the shovel when it comes to digging our way into a problem that's now decades old. And so
homelessness,
there's answers to this stuff.
We go through all of that. There's just and they just keep digging a bigger hole and shoving more money into it and thinking it's going to somehow it'll just get fixed. And I don't think they actually want to fix it. I think they just want to They
do. So this is the thing that I think we lose on is I think they do want to fix it. But these guys are so like wired into the idea that government fixes everything. Government fixes nothing. Government is a set of processes and a bunch of stuff we write down. People fix stuff. There's a bunch of people in charge who've been rewarded for being Democrats and being good soldiers instead of getting things done. And that's the culture you got to change. You got to put people in charge
Fair.
that want to get stuff done. If I was Chris Dudley, you know what I would do? I would say, you know what? I ran against John Kitzhoffer. I almost beat him. He's the only guy that wants to fix healthcare in this state. I would make him in charge of OHA. I'd give him the power. I'd tell him go fire every bureaucrat that's ever gotten his way and make healthcare work. And I think that's how Dudley could start doing stuff that would make people go, holy smokes, this guy's serious. And just do something interesting. Now, I don't know what his relationship is with John Kitzhoffer, but man, it needs to be, you got to, if he could do that, I think that would send shockwaves through this thing. I think it would generate headlines. I think it'd make him relevant, and it gives him a chance to win this thing, both in the primary and the general. I would go find every Democrat who's ever been screwed by the current administration and go, help me beat her. Help show that I'm bipartisan. I'll put you in charge of whatever.
How does that get him over the primary?
Well, I think part of it's about generating headlines and about being serious about leading. And I think Republicans respond to that. That's what they responded to with Trump. He was serious about leading. He was serious about firing people.
Well, and you know also why Trump won too, and this is what I feel like we lack from the governor candidates, all of them, to be honest with you. Like, what are the big ideas? Trump came out with no tax on tips. He came out like he was putting policy ideas out there that the working man and woman could. A huge issue is, whether you're Republican or Democrat, is childcare. Like, they're touching on the same stuff. And that's why Drazen will win, is because if all things are in the same vacuum, then the person with the best name ID comes out on top.
Right.
And so you have to, like you say, create some headlines. And I think creating headlines does two things. One, it shows people that you actually have some ideas. And then the other side of it is it creates headlines. It gets your name out there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to make everybody happy with your headlines, but it's almost like, any press is good press kind of thing. And you need to. There's
been almost no earned media in this race, except for the basic stories about one profile of every candidate. Here's the latest fundraising numbers. And then, we just had another snooze fest of a debate.
Yeah.
Like that's been it. So that's why this race feels like nothing has happened, is because nothing has happened. Nobody has said anything that is unexpected. And this is a strategy you talk about all the time. You need to be relevant. And guess what? There's no media anymore. So you got to kind of say crazier things to be relevant.
I was really hoping that somebody was going to have a plan to say, I'm going to I got 2 weeks until this campaign's over, and I'm going to use this platform, the coin debate, to do X, and then that's going to catapult me the next 2 weeks, right? Like, I'm going to come in and go hot on this one thing or this thing, and then that's what's going to run me the momentum to the finish line. And I saw none of that. I didn't even see strategy of that. I think
Ed Deal should have said, today I'm launching my initiative to repeal property taxes in Oregon. Like, just go for it, because after this primary, if you lose, you're irrelevant. You don't exist anymore, so you might as well go for it.
That was kind of my thing, and I just think that, especially Chris Dudley or Ed Deal, one of those two.
Those two.
Bethel
gets to go back to being a commissioner.
Yeah, she's still elected, and maybe at the end of the day, all of this is really just her gaining the experience and some residual name ID that's gonna help her down the road and all those sort of things. So depending on what she wants to do, and maybe she, just in case somebody wins, she doesn't want to attack because maybe she gets the job, because I'd hired her to do something. She's clearly smart. So, so that I could see that. But if you're Ed Deal and you're Chris Dudley, you got nothing else to go back to.
Nope.
Not in
politics anyway. I mean, I think Ed will try to do initiatives, but without being a state representative, I think the cachet of the bully pulpit will disappear, and he'll actually need to get a new figurehead to run his group. Now, maybe he's the key for the logistics, but he's not going to be relevant in terms of being the front man of this thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, what he'll do is, if he loses, he'll catapult it into being the GOP chair or something.
Which is not a bad move for him, but the Oregon Republican Party chair hasn't been terribly relevant since Art Robinson sent out mailers asking for people to send him pee. So that's kind of the last time that mattered, and that was like 2014.
the problem with the party chairman, and I like Connie, she's great, and she's not running again. I don't think, and I think that there's one, you have to deal with 36 counties that basically want to stab you in the back as soon as you're elected.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I think I say the best way to become party chairman is to start out as vice chairman. Apparently.
And we've had a lot of resignations, some through scandal, some through fits of and attacks of communist elements. We've had it all, basically. It's the most dysfunctional organization out there. And the only thing I can trace it back to is that the chairmanship and the group that's in charge has to go back too often to the 36 counties to get control. What should happen is you should be elected for 2 years. That should be the only vote that the county parties take. You pick the people you trust the best. They get to run the whole cycle. If they succeed, give them another 2 years. If they don't, you're welcome to churn them out. But you can't go back. They couldn't even change their logo without going and talking to the county parties. That's a huge problem. That is a dysfunctional organization.
Yeah.
So it needs a top to down reset.
And you got these congressional chairs, and then you got, the county. Like it's all over the place. And I think to be relevant, you have to make yourself relevant. Yep. Nobody's going to give it to you. And I think when people, whether you were Dallas Hurd, remember when he for a hot minute he was chair, and then he quit, and then Herman was vice chair, became chair, and then again proving my point that the vice chair is your quickest way, and then that's how Justin became chair, because he was Herman's chair. So but what you need is, you don't need somebody that has an ego or a candidate. That's where I just think like because Ed Deal's just going to use it as a platform, right, to further his agenda, whatever that may be. The problem with the ORP, that's why I think Connie was going to turn out to be a pretty good chair. Well, she is a good chair, I should say. She's not quitting. But I just think, because your job is basically staff. Your job is to do the job, and that's to go raise money, work with campaigns, and make it happen, and not be the quote unquote spokesman for the Republican Party of Oregon. Like, all that sort of stuff doesn't matter. Like, they always get hung up on the weeds of the job instead of just the real job. Right. And I think the real job is like, how do I get people elected top to bottom? I'm from freaking dog catcher to governor. How do I get people elected? And that's what we're missing is that whole, structure, and then driven by somebody who knows how to drive a structure, and then to your point, if they don't have to look in the rear view mirror all the time, waiting for somebody to come up behind them, Ben Edel to come up and pound you, from behind or blindside you, then you don't have to worry about it. So and then give somebody a couple of years to do what they got to do, try to win some races, work with the caucuses. And the one thing I think people really don't understand is you have the ORP, and then you have like the House and Senate caucuses, and they're not, they even said that in the debate. Like, they were like, oh, how do you think the Oregon Republican platform? I bet most of those governor candidates that have never even read the Oregon Republican Party platform.
No.
Let alone the national one. I mean, I just think it's really, it's a huge disconnect that people don't really even know the difference between the two things, I don't know.
It's unfortunate. I think if there was somebody who could potentially turn the organization around, Ed Deal's as good a pick as any of somebody that might be able to do it. But it would require him to basically use his goodwill with the PCPs to say, look, I know it looks like I'm about to take away all your ability to do stuff with the party, but that's because all that stuff is a distraction. All of the organization is a distraction. You flatten it. You've got PCPs that are organized by county. They're self-organized. They have chairs appointed, right? Try to make those as functional as possible. They shouldn't be putting on a ton of fundraisers, maybe one a year, right? Just to keep their organization running. ORP, flat, you have a chair, you've got a fundraising person, you've got the treasurer doing compliance, you've got one comms person, done. That's it. And then got everything else. Nothing else matters.
No.
None of that stuff is relevant. It doesn't help us win. All it does is distract and cause infighting. So take away the opportunity to have the infighting and get all of these PCPs pointed at the thing that actually matters, which is fighting to win elections so that we can have balance in the state, so that we can actually contest some of this stuff. And that would be the biggest gift that anybody could give the party in terms of making the party an entity that's functional again.
Yeah, the part of the well, and then you got the national committeemen and committeewoman, and that muddies all the waters. Like,
sure,
it's all
and
just
I'm sure that the 49 other states listen to the Oregon, as smart as great as people they are. They go, yeah, those guys are still from Oregon, though. And I don't think that state has ever mattered or ever will matter. They picked up an extra congressional district. That's 8 electoral votes instead of 7. That's huge. Like, they just don't care. We're not relevant on the national stage. We were with Walden because we had the ability to fundraise. But now that Kotek has driven all of the people with money out of Oregon, all those people live in Texas and California now. So we don't have anything to offer anymore. There's no one that Mike Johnson isn't going to do any more fundraising trips to Oregon. There's no money to raise here. What's left, we need to suck up. We need to suck it up into the state party to turn out Republicans in November. We need to suck it into legislative elections and win some of those. That's about it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, last quick little thing. Ballot returns we're at 3.5% now, maybe 4%.
Is this link in our crosstabs notes here? Because let me click on this.
One.
I have one more rant to do. I'm in a ranty form today.
Oh, okay.
So do they break down the returns by party?
They do. Yeah. So they do it by county, and then you can and then it's county by party, which is like on page 4 or 5. So I'll put it in the notes and you guys can see it. They put it out every day, and it shows you. So Republicans, there's out of 120,000 total ballots that have returned, 40,000 Republican, 51,000 Democrat.
20,000 non-affiliated. And I would like to officially motion for a name change. NAV no longer stands for non-affiliated voter. It stands for not actually voting, because none of these people do since motor voter. This is the thing that I find so funny is, and this came up multiple times in the debate, and everybody's obsessed with, well, how do we reach these independent voters? And I was like, you don't. They do not vote. If you're competitive in the election, you'll win whatever percentage of these guys you're supposed to win. This is still a state of Republicans and Democrats who vote. The NAVs can get as big as they want. Their percentage of turnout will continue to be, it looks like they're 20,000 out of 120,000. So that's what, 10, is that 10%? That's a little over 10%. They're relevant to the extent that they're a tenth of the electorate, of the actual electorate, even though they're the quote unquote biggest group. They don't vote like it. So they're they make themselves irrelevant, because most of those people do not want to be registered to vote. They do not care. And we can't make them care whether we send them 1 or 10 ballots. They don't care. And so it's just an opportunity to defraud the system. Right. They're essentially inactive.
Yep. And that's the hardest part I have with it, is that they're inactive voters, and really, if people want to keep the cost of campaigns down, you would just get rid of those voters that are inactive, and just say, if you want to be part of the solution or help with campaign finance, because then I don't have to reach that many people who would have to spend as much money.
The way it used to work was you went to the DMV and they said, would you like us to register your vote?
Yeah.
We'll send your information over to the Secretary of State. Check yes or no. And then they changed it to it's yes by default. You got to opt out. And now they just do it automatically. And that has done exactly zero, except for reduce the percentage turnout in Oregon. This is classic Oregon. We find a problem that doesn't exist. Oh my gosh, there are people who don't vote. Well, gosh, it's a free country. I would hope there's some people who don't vote. The thing I'm scared of is when we force everybody to vote, because after that comes, we force everybody to vote for our dictator. So let's not do that. Yeah. And then the second thing was, oh my gosh, there's all these people who aren't voting. What if we give them the opportunity to vote? Okay, I guess. Now we're going to force send them a ballot. Hold on, guys. There's a lot of ballots that aren't being returned. And now the new problem is, oh my gosh, turnout is so low. Well, how did we get turnout to be so low? We registered a bunch of people who don't want to be registered to vote and do not want to vote. Go out there and run as many voter registration drives, get people excited about voting. Great. But don't force it on them. Stop doing that. That's not the way that we do things as Americans. That's not how we do it as Oregonians. We could have 95% voter turnout. We used to, because we sent everybody a ballot who wanted one. But we don't do that now. Now we just send everybody a ballot, and we try to classify as many people as possible as voters. And it's a self-created problem.
The next thing that they're trying to push is like, oh, the reason is because we have closed primaries. That's why people don't vote. Now, if we just had open primaries, more people would vote. And it's like, no, actually they won't.
Do you know how many of these people are gun-toting, live out in the middle of nowhere, people that just don't think government is a good idea? Like, do you know how many of these people are just actually anarchists that think government shouldn't exist, or that all it should do is be like Ron Swanson says, there should be one guy in a shack that has control of the nuclear codes, and that's it. Like, that's his perfect form of government. That's what a lot of these people think. Like, you don't realize until you step outside of the Tri-County metro area how like absolutely right-wing, like beyond right-wing Oregon is. And that's just as many of these guys, just as many inner city anarchists, by the way, in the middle of downtown Portland, that think that they can run a city better than Portland, and they probably unfortunately can. So, it's just like, stop creating fake problems. Let's go solve real problems. But they're fascinated with the fake ones, the self-inflicted ones, the not real problems.
Yeah, more fun. All right, give me your rant. Unless that was it.
I think that was pretty much it.
That was you said you had one more rant. It was on
not voting. Actually. They're not actually voters, Brian. They're not. They're just NAV, not actually voting. That's what we need. That's what from now. That's the thing. Spread it far and wide. I'm not taking a trademark. I'm not going to take 10% of the earnings. This is free for everyone. NAV now means not actually voting. Let's get that message across before they try to mandate more voting requirements or sending ballots to dogs or whatever they plan to do to try to fix the fake problem they created.
No, just illegals, Reagan. That's all.
Don't worry. At least when we send the illegals ballot, most of them don't vote. Okay, cool. Did everybody forget for a hot minute there where when they got the list, they were like, well, we are not sure we should release this information because we may have caused them to accidentally do a crime. It's like, well, maybe we should have thought of that before we sent them a ballot.
No doubt. I was pulling like Deschutes County because I'm doing the county commission races over there. And then, so I was pulling NAV voters and just like, who's the likely NAV voters? And the turnout in the NAV crowd is like 20%.
Yeah. Deschutes is about the highest, I think. They have the most engaged voter base across the board. Ours turn out high, D's do, and NAVs do. But again, high for NAVs is 20%.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
Good times. All right. Well, welcome back to the pod. You missed a good one with Troy Cribbins the other day.
I'll go back and listen. I'm sorry that I did. That
was good. We had a good conversation. It was good. And then, so we were able to wedge in a few candidate interviews. I think we wanted to do more than we actually got to doing.
That's all right. Look, voters will decide who matters and we'll pick up the rest. Huh?
Yeah. And maybe, and we'll keep our eye on the, what do we got? 12 days if you don't count today. Actually, it's 11 days left until the primary, 12 days or something. So it's pretty next week. I mean, if you're looking at only 5% of people have voted. So, I mean, but or turned in their ballot, because that's really not fair. A lot of people vote.
I'm a campaign's worst nightmare. I've decided a long time before I got my ballot who I was voting for. But I haven't filled in my ballot, and I won't until probably the last week, and I won't drop it until the last day because I want to get all the mailers. And there's lots of competitive Republican primaries. So very sorry for the extra 65 cents I'm costing all of your campaigns every time you send something. But I like to get the mail. It's interesting to me. But don't worry. Most people will vote to make it stop, and you'll save money on them.
We'll have to, after the primary, we'll pull out who did the best mail pieces and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do best logo. We'll do best mail. We'll do like one YouTube. We'll do one video for all of you people. There's 0 people demanding the video, but we'll give it to you anyway. And we'll look through some of these good pieces and talk about strategy and what we can do, what we'll see in the next primary.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay. Get out of here. Go do something.
Marco Rubio. The last thing, listen to Marco Rubio. He apparently took over the press room. There was a little clip of him talking about how great America is and how great we want it to be. Go listen to that. That's awesome. Marco Rubio is still pretty good.
I'll put that in the show notes. I think he's just getting better, man.
Yeah,
The
he's
more
in.
you listen to that guy, you know what I think? I think spending some time with Trump gave him a sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
He was too serious before. Now he's a little less serious. And he looks light years better than JD Vance, unfortunately, for Mr. Vice President Vance. So
Wow.
we'll see how he does.
All righty.
Walking down these marble halls today. Got a bill, I wanna make its way. People talking left and right, but we're gonna do this thing tonight. Oh, yeah. Time to make a move. Can't afford to lose. Got the votes to prove what we're gonna do. We're dancing back and forth on the Senate floor. La, 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 yeah. Moving bills through an open door. Round and round until we score. This is what we came here for. Dancing on the Senate floor. Representatives and senators meet, trading words to find the perfect beat. Committee hearings all day long, till we finally sing the same song. Oh, yeah. Amendments flying high, watch them pass on by. Gotta give and try, make this bill fly. We're dancing back and forth on the Senate floor. La, 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 yeah, yeah. Moving bills through an open door. Round and round until we score. This is what we came here for. Dancing on the Senate floor. When the votes align, and the count is right. Feel that Oregon pride, as we pass it tonight. We're dancing